It may not feel like it, but sign after sign, time after time, the Walt Disney Company is displaying perhaps that it is done with the culture war, that it wants out of woke politics. Perhaps it is that some of the stuff they're just stuck with, it's got to get through the pipeline. Now, even major industry analysts are beginning to agree with what we've been telling you, and it could be a good sign for the House of Mouse. Folks, hang tight. We'll play the video and show you what the experts are saying right now. Hello, come one, come all, and join, folks, in the, not the fall of the House of Mouse, but perhaps the resurrection of Disney. No, not like a phoenix is it rising from the ashes, but rather more like from some sort of strange, trippy, woke dream or nightmare. It's stumbling about, shaking off the mousy booze that it's been under. And that's perhaps because it was going to lose a ton of money. Disney has been needing to get rid of woke, and after the election, it's no joke, they are moving in that direction as fast as they possibly can. Folks, happy to talk about it. We've got an expert panel, and we can't wait to break down for you the signs, the signals, in spite of some very poor efforts by Disney as of late, and you'll know exactly what's going on right now. All right, folks, Disney getting out of that sort of thing. Remember that it was Disney that they decided they were not going to use gendered language anymore in their parks. They're not allowed to say, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in just 5 minutes, the lighting in the Magic Kingdom will dim. Now they have to say dreamers of all ages. Well, it turns out that Disney is ready to shout out, they're done with the culture war. They're out of this kind of divisive stuff, and it's coming to us from, let's see here, MDB Capital President and Chief Marketing Strategist Lou Bassanese. And we'll see what he has to say regarding Disney, but it's more confirmation and affirmation that even if Disney is not good in terms of merit, they're trying to get better in terms of out of politics. Here's what he had to say.
So, Lou, Disney is slowly turning against that woke culture from a few years ago, that got Bob Chapek ousted from there. How badly does Disney need Moana 2 to...
Hold on a second. Chapek was ousted because he tried to moderate. And Iger, so technically he's right. Iger was the one who was, we believe, behind the ousting over politics. Remember, this was the Florida stuff, but really it was more than that. Really, it was that Iger had brought in Jeff Morrell, who was a very moderate Republican, who was going to try to get the company out of politics. Iger could not allow that because Disney needed to be a messaging arm of a particular ideology.
To be a hit like Deadpool and Wolverine.
Is there to be intellectually honest? In August of 23, I called Disney a dumpster fire for capital, and I wasn't wrong. It really was when Bob Iger came on. But after suffering $11 billion of losses, they've turned around the streaming. They're starting to make profits, strong growth. They've had big hits. Moana 2, this could add significantly to their profitability. I think they absolutely need the momentum to continue in this business. The thing that's always kept me away from Disney is that it's so consumer-based and driven, and right now at a time when the consumer is very strapped. But
all right. So I take some issues with what this fella is saying, and that's because we pay very close attention to Disney, and I don't actually suspect that Disney is doing quite so well. The reason for that is they have not yet removed out the ideologues from every division they have. For example, yes, they seem to be moderating their films, but the parks and the park experiences, they're still just as politically driven as ever before. Vash, I see you affirming what I'm saying. What say you?
I think they are. I mean, if you look at the parks division right now, you still hear the not the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as you astutely pointed out, but hello friends, and the non-gendered language and so forth. You still see Tiana's Bay Adventure, for example, and well, we have a story actually updating on whether or not that's actually going to go to Tokyo very soon. But you can still see the company pushing for these things. We have heard a lot of rumors about what might happen to the Hall of Presidents. And again, that just encompasses a very small portion of the parks division. We've just seen this escalation, let's say, in terms of the Stories Matters initiative and the PC culture that they are attempting to push out. We have heard all kinds of rumors behind the scenes, whether it comes to the proliferation or proliferation of certain ideologies behind the scenes there, in in the back rooms and so forth, and in the let's say the places where cast members hang out. A lot of initiatives. We've heard about that at Epcot. We've heard about that at Disneyland Park itself. So yeah, I don't see any moderation from the parks level, but also from a company level. I see some decisions being made. Let's say for Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur, right? That episode that was very problematic that somebody decided to upload anyway. I'm glad that the company pulled back on that specific episode, but we need to see more moderation actually take place before I think a lot of families jump back on board the Disney train.
Can I jump in on this quickly? What also it seems like is like it seems like a fluff piece. We're getting rid of the woke. We're getting rid of the DEI. You in the front cover. But we've already renamed it 3 times, and we have 3 other lists. Meanwhile, all the activists are currently dyeing their hair while we get the next movie out. Believe us and invest again. Stock goes up. It sounds like just a repetitive cycle story that we've seen with every corporation, like whether it be Ubersoft or with CD Projekt Red, with Witcher 4 coming. It's all the same narrative. They deny, they get caught, they rename, they deny, get caught, and they repeat. And we're just watching everything, like things in the gaming, like Dustborn, Diablo 4 failing, all of Concord. Everything is hitting that plateau of the activists are not winning, but yet we're still going to deny that this stuff is happening. It's the same with Disney and everywhere else. The only thing I haven't heard much of this from is Universal.
Well, I'll say this, in terms of how things are going with Disney and all of the culture war divisiveness, it's going to be interesting to watch and see what happens with Moana 2, because it is devoid of any divisive messaging, but it's also devoid of any kind of story. I mean, it's a terrible movie. So the question is going to be, do people eat up Disney when it's bland and awful and poorly made?
No.
Or is this strictly about wokeness? Like, is Strange World undigestible to the average Disney person because it's woke, but quality has no effect? We're going to find that out with Moana 2. We're going to find out exactly where that line is drawn.
See, that's the really interesting thing about Moana 2 is that I think the first weekend's going to be huge numbers, right? Culture, I think you can back me up here. It's tracking to be very, very big. What is going to be pivotal to me is seeing that second week drop off right there. If that's a huge percentage, that might be, curtains for Moana 2. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people were very excited about like Inside Out 2, for example, because it didn't feature any wokeness and it was safe for their kids. And people, I think, really wanted to go out and take their children, let's say, to an animated film. Hadn't really done that in a big way for years on end. I don't know if that same momentum is going to carry Moana 2, but maybe I could be wrong here.
Well, Vash, you nailed it. You nailed a point right there. Story culture is that safe for kids. And that's the one thing parents are looking out for, whether it be in any type of medium for media. If it's not safe for their kids, they're not going to take them. They're not going to make money. And that's the biggest problem that's been going on for the last 5 to 10, maybe more years, is because it has been more questionable whether or not is it safe for my kids. And I leave this on while I go handle, like Pro was saying, the turkey in the kitchen and make sure they're not going to get, the word I hate using is indoctrination, but that's what it is. Do they feel safe? It's no longer can they go walk to school safe, it's now can they even watch a televised program safe? Mm-hmm. Can they stream safe, play a game safe? And it's becoming more apparent that it's not.
I also have to draw. I also have to question the statement that they're making about streaming becoming profitable, because as we all know, a lot of their streaming success right now is coming from either content that they don't outright own or Hulu, which they do not outright own yet because they are still, in a legal battle or trying to decide on the final price point with Universal to sell off the rest of Hulu. Now, one thing that I thought was very interesting while we were streaming the Thanksgiving Day parade earlier was Universal, I think, dropped a little streaming shade, because they made it a point when the Bluey float came out to say Bluey is the most streamed content on the planet, with 47 billion minutes watched this year, and they even mentioned Disney Plus specifically. So that I think was a shot across the bow, because Disney does not like to mention the fact that Bluey is its biggest streaming show currently. Now, but we've also heard Bob Iger come out here multiple times over the last couple of years and say, "Oh, we're not going to be getting involved in politics anymore. We're not a sounding board. We're not here for political messaging." And then they just go right back to doing it. It is a watch what one hand does while the other hand does something sneaky.
They're
Culture Casino. Yeah, Culture Casino, you've been waiting patiently to give your thoughts on this, I think.
Yeah, and look, it's the same problem with narrative that they have about the box office that Wicked does. I mean, you're looking at 6 days, it's almost a full week of the weekend, quote unquote. Now we always have a 5-day weekend with, when we have holiday weekends like this. That's not uncommon, but people understand there's an asterisk with that. But at the same, or asterisk, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But with this, it's even more disingenuous because with Wicked and with this film, it's legitimately 6 days. They're going to call it a 5-day weekend. It's not. It started showing in the middle of the day on Tuesday. Wicked actually had an extra Sunday, and then eventually, some other fan screenings on the Wednesday before the actual Thursday preview. So it honestly angers me that they're continually allowed to get away with it. Right now, we're sitting at a pretty good chunk of change with the 3 days in through Friday. I don't know, or I guess through the 27th, which was yesterday. So that's, yeah. So you're looking at some decent numbers at 57.5 million right now. Will these numbers be good? Yeah, they're projecting a big number, 100, darn close to or over $150 million potentially. Will that come to pass? Maybe. We have, believe it or not, the shopping day, the day after Thanksgiving is usually a huge day because it's usually shopping and a movie.
Right.
But now it's got so much competition, and a lot of theater kids are wanting to re-see the Wicked, part 1, which a lot of people learned was part 1. Just going, but and phooey on them for not warning people. But regardless, I have a feeling that you're gonna end up with some angry folks. By that film, but at the same time, you're going to see a lot of people re-seeing it. So you also have something else there in Gladiator 2. I mean, what's going to satisfy your whole family? Well, it's not Moana 2 because it is definitely not made for 4 quadrants. It is dumbed down in the extreme because it was supposed to be a children's television show, and not an actual movie that appeals to all quadrants or even to adults. In fact, Walt made animation for adults. It just happened to satisfy the kids too, because it doesn't take that much for the kids to get the kids stuff and the adults to get the adult stuff, and everybody's happy. But they didn't do that with Moana. You got episode 1 of Moana the TV show and episode 7 and 8 of Moana the TV show, and that's what you got for a film, which is why a lot of it doesn't make sense. The critics didn't like it very much. The 88% there is being artificially elevated.
Yeah.
As we know, Disney uses a giant portion of their budget, not giant, as a substantial portion of their advertisement budget to drive different things like ticket sales and reviews. And to be fair, not just Disney, a lot of other studios do the same thing. Look, this is about as reliable as looking to IGN for a review. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Just understand that if you listen to the people that go and see these things like Pro and many others, they don't, they're telling you that this is not the greatest film ever. I mean, when you have an animation lover like Alan Ng over at Film Threat, one of our great pals, he's not thrilled. Jacob over at Bounding into Comics is likely to give you a pretty solid, strong opinion on this movie. So it's just it's like if you just listen to the people that go and see it, and oftentimes I go see films, and I was not going to go see Moana 2. But I will tell you that they're probably the more sound opinions that you're going to agree with if you love the channels that you're watching. If you love Bounding into Comics, if you love That Park Place, if you love WDW Pro, if you love Valiant Renegade. If you love Steven and his craziness, if you love Martin.
My ego, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. You have an ego? All right. Anyway.
Do you think though this is gonna go well though? Culture once Snow White drops and everyone realizes and has Vietnam flashbacks of every Zegler tweet since the release.
Well, the big problem is that they're hiding because they're cowards. The minute they release that
travesty
trailer, even the trailer on YouTube, they're going to get nuked. Because it is Girl Boss the movie, and that's bad. Whereas Moana, tempered that a bit and was kind of the first one was a wonderful adventure film, right? You got to explore an entirely new world and a new culture in a creative and fun way. Disney isn't capable of that anymore, and I think it's going to show ultimately in the earnings. So the question I was asked, and I went on for 2.5 hours afterwards, was what are the earnings going to be? It's going to do okay this first weekend, but when we come to competition time,
right,
people aren't going to go see this again.
One thing when you're talking about Glickid plus Moana 2 that I think a lot of people are overlooking is if you look at the international market for Gladiator 2 and Wicked for the opening weekend last weekend.
Yeah.
Outside the North America, Gladiator beat Wicked. And in most of those markets, it was in its second weekend. So I feel like everyone's sleeping on Gladiator 2 and maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. It might have already. It might have already.
One of the very few films that Jacob over at Bounding Into Comics, who I trust almost implicitly with my movie Rex, he was like, "This is actually good." And so, yes, I think Marvin, you're right. I think people are sleeping on it for some reason, and I don't understand why. I think a lot of us were suspicious of Gladiator 2, and I think we all just sort of held that because. Yeah, like I didn't have any good opinions toward it until Jacob said something about it.
Well, you can give up Gladiator 2, give up Moana, and everyone should go out support The Rock with that red one travesty that doesn't fit anywhere in any type of Christmas. I'm being
250 million.
I'm being sarcastic and facetious, Culture. That movie was bad. It was bad. I watched it.
The Rock says, film your holiday movie in IMAX.
It was literally the Black Adam cosplaying as security for Santa Claus. That's what it was.
That's really tough. I want to end this conversation with Spencer right here because I thought you wrote a really interesting piece here at Bounding Into Comics, Spencer, talking about the specific issue of woke Hollywood and not necessarily making product fit for consumers, but really for themselves. This previous Amazon executive saying making customers the enemy of your industry is never viable. I wanted to ask you, Spencer, if Moana 2 ends up being successful and maybe Snow White ends up not being successful, for what is it? Reasons that contradict with the other being, wokeness or the inclusion of it. Will Hollywood get the message? Will Disney get the message?
Of course not. This is never. They never will. I mean, we are in. Here, I'll give you an example, Vash. It's one that I love bringing up because we all knew it was going to happen, and it did happen, which was Deadpool and Wolverine. That movie came out. It did really well. Everybody really liked it. It made a lot of money. Everybody said, hey, the MCU sucks, but this is a fun romp. And what would you normally expect a studio to learn off of that? Okay, maybe we give more creative control back to the people like the writers and the directors. Maybe we get a little more hands off. Maybe we, get more character driven. We give fans what they want instead of trying to just subvert their expectations. Instead of learning any lesson like that, they said, oh, people like the multiverse again. So now everything is even like they're going even more full force into the multiverse stuff, saying things like, oh yeah, X-Men come in after the multiverse. Like, come check it out. This is what it's all leading up to. Fantastic Four, it's multiverse too. And it's just like, you guys learned the wrong lessons. So the lessons they'll learn if your scenario plays out of Moana 2 works and Snow White doesn't work out, the lesson they'll take away there is something about release windows. And don't ask me what it'll be because it'll just be some executive trying to make something up. Oh, it was March. It was colder in March or something. I don't know. People didn't go to the theater. Something like that. What was that movie they did that excuse for? They just did that. Like in England, remember they were like, oh, people didn't go see the movie because the weather was nice out.
I can't.
There's one point you're forgetting, though, Spencer. Sorry about the alarm. I'm going to mute myself quickly. The one thing they did do is they removed She-Hulk and put Deadpool on the Marvel poster. Let's not forget that. That was their idea of signaling to the customers.
They did do that. Or go ahead, Marvin. Sorry, I didn't want to.
No. I was just confirming. Yeah, we did a piece on TPP about that. I'm sure you covered it as well,
yeah, you
Spencer.
Guys did. No, we didn't. I've been linking over to yours.
Yeah. Thank you. It was definitely a a statement being like, okay, this is not going forward. This is, but it's Deadpool, and like it's one of these things that's not like the other things because it's Deadpool, it's Yelena Black Widow, it's Captain Marvel, it's Anthony Mackie Captain America, it's Scarlet Witch. But I mean, it's just the B Squad plus Deadpool. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, it's like you guys for Transformers and you get GoBots. That's literally what the Marvel poster is now. So, yeah.
And yet again, folks, we have come to the end. But what a video it has been, and we hope you agree. Folks, if you had a good time with us, consider clicking that like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell, and drop a comment right on down below. We care about your thoughts. Folks, we also want to invite you to partake in thatparkplace.com. Of course, www. You get the idea. Thatparkplace.com. It is the website telling the truth, and it is a rising star across the web for pop culture news coverage and analysis. Go over there and bookmark it today. Folks, we're bookmarking you as a great guest that we appreciate. Until the next time we have the honor of spending time with you, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, folks, you better believe it, keep having fun.